everyone! I'm Melinda.
I'm Madison.
I'm Melissa.
And welcome to our video tour of the ear.
So to start off with, we're going to start with the outer ear, and we're going to start with the visible portion of the ear called the pinna or the auricle. On the uppermost part of the pinna is the helix, and then adjacent to that is the antihelix. These are the two primary ridges on your pinna. At the end of the helix is the cruciate helix, and the end of the antihelix, it divides into the two crura of the antihelix. We also have the tragus and the antitragus. Between these two, we have the intertragal notch. The scaphoid process, or the scaphoid fossa, lies between the helix and the antihelix, and we also have the cymboconcha and the cavum concha. Finally, at the very bottom, we have the lobule, or the ear lobe. As we move internally into the outer ear, we can see the external auditory canal. The outer 1/3 of the canal is a cartilaginous portion, and the inner 2/3 is osseous. In the cartilaginous portion, there are sebaceous glands that produce cerumen, commonly known as earwax. Earwax's purpose is to clean and protect the ear canal by pushing debris and dust and other environmental factors out of the canal. Finally, as we move in more, we reach the eardrum or the tympanic membrane. Visible on the tympanic membrane from an otoscope, you can see the manubrium of the malleus, the head of the malleus, the umbo, which is the point of the most retraction on the eardrum, the cone of light, which is just a reflection of light from the otoscope, the pars tensa, and the pars flaccida at the top. And the annulus connects the tympanic membrane to the osseous wall of the external auditory canal.
The auricle is essential for amplifying frequencies between 2000 to 7000 Hz. These higher frequencies include fricatives such as sh, and s.
The external auditory canal transfers sound waves from the auricle to the tympanic membrane. The canal also helps with the transfer of sound waves by warming the air around the tympanic membrane. This helps the sound travel more quickly and more efficiently. The tympanic membrane converts acoustical energy into mechanical energy by vibrating the malleus, which in turn vibrates the rest of the ossicles in the middle ear.
Now let's review the middle ear. The middle ear is an air-filled membrane-lined cavity located between the ear canal and the eustachian tube, cochlea, and auditory nerve. The eardrum separates this space from the ear canal. The area is pressurized. The middle ear converts sound waves or acoustical energy into mechanical energy. It is most sensitive to low-frequency sounds from 800 to 1500 Hz. The middle ear is divided into 3 cavities. The superior portion, the space in the middle ear above the tympanic membrane, is called the epitympanic recess and is also known as the attic. The inferior portion of the middle ear is called the mesotympanic cavity. Lastly, there is the eustachian tube, which reaches the pharyngeal cavity. The 3 smallest bones in the human body are housed in the middle ear. This chain of bones is known as the ossicles. The ossicles help carry sound waves from the air-filled external auditory canal to the fluid-filled middle ear. The ossicles include the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. The most lateral bone is the malleus. The handle of the malleus is known as the manubrium. The manubrium is embedded in the fibrous layer of the tympanic membrane to its approximate center, the umbo. Other landmarks of that malleus include the head, the neck, the long process, and the lateral process. The head of the malleus is connected to the incus, an area of connection that extends upward into the adatus antrum, or the epitympanic recess. The incus, the bone medial to the malleus and the stapes, has a long process, or crus, that abruptly turns into a short crus known as the lenticular process. The end of the lenticular process sits squarely on the head of the stapes. The stapes comprises of a head, a neck, and two crura. The posterior crus is longer and thinner than that of the anterior crus, which aids in the rocking motion of the ossicles. The base of the stapes is called the footplate and occupies the oval window. The malleus and the incus are connected rigidly so that the inward and outward movement of the umbo causes the two bones to rotate. The force is thus transferred to the stapes, which results in both outward and inward motion of the oval window.
The ligaments make it so that the middle ear motion is unaffected by gravity changes created by head movement. There are 6 ligaments. The superior ligament of the malleus, which connects at the head of the malleus to the tegmen tympani on the superior wall of the middle ear. The lateral ligament of the malleus extends back from the back of the neck of the malleus to the bony wall superior to the tympanic membrane. The next ligament is the anterior ligament of the malleus, which extends from the anterior process of the malleus to the anterior wall of the middle ear. On the incus, we have the superior ligament of the incus from the head of the incus to the tegmen tympani, again on the superior wall of the middle ear. Next is the posterior ligament of the incus, which is attaching to the short process of the incus to the tympanic recess. Some of these cannot be seen in this picture. The final ligament is the annular ligament, which attaches from the oval window to the footplate of the stapes. Continuous with the middle ear are the 2 smallest striated muscles in the body, the tensor tympani muscle and the stapedius muscle. The tensor tympani enters the anterior wall through the cochleaform process and attaches to the superior portion of the malleus. The stapedius muscle emerges through the pyramidal eminence and attaches to the upper portion of the stapes via the stapedial tendon. In the presence of acoustic stimulation from high above the threshold, both muscles are contracted, therefore serving as a protective mechanism against loud noises.
There are 6 walls of the middle ear, including the superior, the inferior, the lateral, the medial, the posterior, and the anterior wall. The superior wall, also known as the ceiling, includes the tegmen tympani. The tegmen tympani is the roof of the middle ear and is a thin layer of bone that separates the middle ear cavity from the brain. Over here, we have the inferior wall of the middle ear, which is also called the floor. On the floor of the middle ear cavity is the jugular fossa. Below the floor, you can see the jugular vein. The anterior, or carotid wall, includes the carotid canal, the canal of the tensor tympani muscle, the eustachian tube entrance, the cochleaform process, and the septum canalis musculotuberi, which is not pictured but lies between the carotid artery and the canal of the tensor tympani. Behind the anterior wall is the carotid artery. The lateral, or membranous wall, is located here. This wall consists of the tympanic membrane and the squamous portion of the temporal bone. The posterior wall, over here, is also known as the mastoid wall and consists of 4 landmarks: the tympanic adytus, the pyramidal eminence, the fossa incutus, which you can't see but is found behind the incus, and the chorda tympani nerve. Lastly, we have the medial wall, which includes the oval window, the round window, the promontory of the cochlea, the prominence of the facial nerve canal, the prominence of the horizontal or lateral semicircular canal, and the tympanic nerve. In terms of physiology, it is important to note that the middle ear is an impedance matching system. Any moving object has to overcome a certain amount of resistance to its movement. A sound wave that is moving through air strikes surfaces that impede its progress. Impedance of a medium is the opposition it presents to the transmission of acoustic energy. The middle ear functions to offset the decrease in acoustic energy that would occur if the low impedance ear canal directly contacted the high impedance cochlear fluid. When a sound wave is transferred from a low impedance medium, such as that of the air in the ear canal, to one of high impedance, such as the cochlear fluid, a considerable amount of energy is reflected and fails to enter the liquid. The middle ear, however, overcomes the 30 decibel loss that occurs due to the impedance mismatch between air and liquid. The vibrating area of the tympanic membrane is 17 times that of the oval window. Therefore, the sound pressure collected over the larger area of the tympanic membrane is concentrated on the oval window, which increases the sound pressure. Think about the amount of pressure you feel if someone steps on you with the running shoes versus that of a stiletto. The pressure of the stiletto is much more concentrated. Similarly, sound pressure collected over the surface of the tympanic membrane is concentrated on the smaller surface of the oval window, thus increasing pressure. Through leverage, the force received at the footplate of the stapes is greater than that applied at the malleus. The ratio of the tympanic membrane displacement to the oval window displacement is increased by about 1.3 to 1. Furthermore, the conical shape of the tympanic membrane helps increase force and decrease velocity because the handle of the malleus does not move with the same amplitude as the tympanic membrane. In conclusion, the total pressure gain from the impedance matching system is approximately the same as the 30 decibel loss.
And now for the inner ear. We've reviewed the outer ear, the middle ear, and now for the inner ear, which is made up of two parts, the vestibular system and the cochlea. The cochlea is a fluid-filled structure that is connected to the oval and round window. The cochlea is like a curled up tube with three different canals. The first canal is the scala vestibuli, the scala media, and the scala tympani. The scala tympani ends at the round window. The scala vestibuli and the scala tympani are filled with perilymph and meet at the apex or helicotryma. The apex is sensitive to low frequency sounds and the base is sensitive to high frequency sounds. The middle canal of the cochlea is called the scala media and is filled with endolymph. Endolymph has a higher potassium concentration than perilymph. The three canals, as you can see in this picture, start at the top with the scala vestibuli, the scala media, and the scala tympani. Inside the cochlea, there's the basilar and Reisner's membrane, the stria vascularis, the spiral ganglion, the osseous spiral lamina, the spiral ligament, and the osseous spiral lamina. To review the canals, the top one is the scala vestibuli, the scala media, and the scala tympani. The cochlea also contains the end organ of hearing within the scala media called the organ of Corti. The organ of Corti contains the tectorial membrane, the tunnel of Corti, and inner and outer hair cells. Sound starts when the fluid in the cochlea is displaced in the scala vestibuli. This causes the Reisner's membrane to shift, causing the endolymph to send a signal all the way around to the basilar membrane. This is an example of tonotopic organization. When the basilar membrane shifts, the hair cells move up and the cilia bend and push up against the tectorial membrane. The hair cells moving causes a cochlear microphonic release of energy, sending a signal to the auditory nerve fibers, then to the brain, which interprets the signals as sound.
The other portion of the inner ear is called the vestibular system. The vestibular system is divided into two portions, the semicircular canals and the utriculosaccular system. The semicircular canals are three separate canals filled with perilymph and endolymph. The outermost region is perilymph, and then a membranous tube in each is the endolymph. The uppermost canal is the superior semicircular canal. Then we have the posterior semicircular canal and the lateral or horizontal semicircular canal. Each canal has a bulge at the bottom that is called the ampulla. Inside the ampulla, which is the purple dots in this diagram, is the crista. The crista is the end organ for the semicircular canals. Inside each crista is a copula, which is a membranous flap. The membranous flap is attached to hair cells, which are then attached to nerve fibers. When fluid in the semicircular canals passes over the copula, it moves, which then moves the hair cells and then sends signals through the nerve cells to the brain. The utricle and saccule are the other two portions of the vestibular system, and they are also filled with endolymph. Inside each of these organs is a macula, which is the end sensory organ for this part. Inside each macula is otoconia, which are small calcium deposits. And below that is the otolithic membrane, which is a gelatinous layer. And at the base, we have more hair cells connected to more nerve fibers. When the head or the body moves, when the head or the body moves, the otoconia are heavier, so they move slow. They accelerate slower and deaccelerate slower than the rest of the body. And that movement triggers the hair cells, which send nerve signals to the brain. Because the utricle and saccule are each on one plane, they are responsible for detecting lateral acceleration. The utricle detects horizontal acceleration, and the saccule detects vertical acceleration. The semicircular canals are round, so they detect angular acceleration. The superior canal detects accelerations in the motion of nodding your head yes. The lateral canal detects acceleration in the motion of shaking your head no. And the posterior canal detects acceleration in the motion of tipping your head, tipping your ear to your shoulder. Any angular motion can be detected by one or more of the canals.
Thanks for watching! We hope you enjoyed our video tour of the ear.
And I hope you learned something new.
Bye!